Those Redheads from Seattle from 1953. Now, this has now been happily re released in a single package along with Sangria and Ivero. Now, all three movies in the re release package were filmed with different cameras. In fact, Redheads from Seattle was not filmed with a 3D camera at all. The studio had a dual camera that they built in the 30s that they used to film super wide backgrounds across two strips of film. These were used for special effects in those rear projection shots that would later be replaced by chroma screen, although they're kind of making a comeback now. So you might consider that this movie was something of a 3D experiment and not an entirely successful one. The 3D version of Redheads was only seen in a handful of theaters. The printed reviews hated the 3D version. You see, many scenes were just broken. The alignment was off, and this made it physically painful to watch. On the extras, on the Blu-ray, they briefly show an example of the problem, and I attest that it was uncomfortable to watch, even for those few seconds. I couldn't imagine 90 minutes. Fortunately, the 3D Film Archive was able to fix the alignment issue for this release, in a way making the present-day audience the first people to really see this movie in a proper 3D viewing. They also shared examples of various film degradation that they had to deal with, and Frankenstein back to life somehow. They worked wonders, especially considering how small the 3D archive team is, and it is a treasure to be able to watch this slice of history. Although of the three movies in the re-release package, this one is noticeably the fuzziest. You'll notice in this movie they absolutely fill each room with stuff to look at. Some rooms almost feel like they were filmed in an antique store. It's a noble attempt to give us lots of stereo candy to eat up. Some moments, though, are not really successful. This dance number with hands sticking out of the curtains is the sort of thing that probably seemed like a great 3D idea on paper, but in execution there isn't enough separation between the hands and the curtain for much effect. It might have looked good had they used a close-up for it, but like many 50s 3D movies, close-ups are avoided due to the limitations of the cameras. And unfortunately, this avoidance impacts the scope of the storytelling. You don't really get that meditative beat on an actor's reaction or have a chance to let some contemplative eyes soak in. Notice this shot where they linger in front of closed doors. On the Hevero commentary, the 3D archive team pointed out that these shots were common in films of this era due to the limitations, again, of the stereo cameras. They are keeping the background close to keep the shot comfortable for the eyes, because the divergence increases as the background goes away from the actor. Sometimes you get a movie that's filmed with 3D in mind, and I tend to imagine it improving the experience, artistic angles, lighting, and blocking that's designed to maximize the illusion of depth. And actually using light to create the illusion of depth is taught at a very basic level of lighting design. However, this sort of thing of avoiding close-ups and having them stand next to walls, I feel is an example of 3D interfering with the potential of a movie. It's compromised. It's actually avoiding depth. It's making a decision to do less. Now, Rhonda Fleming is something of a first lady of 3D, starring in 3 Golden Age stereo films. It was actually a little sad for me to watch this and realize I won't be finding any more 3D Rhonda films to see. There's a 10-minute interview on the disc which reveals that in addition to 3D, these were the first years that she was seen in color movies. And if you take a look, she really does have a different look to her in black and white. Looking at some of her black and white performances, I found color actually made her look older, wiser, which actually works against her, especially in the opening of this movie. It felt a little strange to see her play young and silly. Although she was young at the time, she has such a serious and intense look that the color only intensifies that it's difficult to imagine her being careless. Now, as a movie, as story-wise, it's not strong for me. It's the weakest in the package, but not terrible. And I found it grew on me after rewatching it a couple of times. Sometimes you have to search out a movie to get it to work, find its key, or just pry it open and make it work. Finding fun isn't easy, because you see, if it was easy, well, then it wouldn't be any fun. I came to realize it's not a movie about the redheads at all, but this owner is the real heart of the movie. But there seems to be a beat missing in this story. If I were remaking this, I'd lose the songs and use the time to give him a subplot to reveal more of his character and struggle. I realize he is something like the rascal saloon owner from the HBO TV show Deadwood, where that character really was a second sheriff, and the show was about competing codes of honor. I feel Redheads is about the same thing. But you have to infer a bit, and shall we say, insert some imagination between the lines to really bring this story to life. But if you do, then I think it delivers some food for thought on how honor is relative, and two men who are diametrically positioned can actually be moral equals.